Dr. Sarah Chen adjusted her environmental suit as she stepped through the airlock of the research station orbiting Kepler 442c. The planet below looked deceptively peaceful, its purple oceans and crystalline continents hiding secrets that had puzzled the Galactic Archaeological Council for over 2 centuries. As the only human member of the expedition team, Sarah felt the familiar weight of representing her species among the diverse group of alien researchers. The expedition leader, Zektar of the Velthian Confederacy, approached with his usual measured gait. His forearms moved in complex patterns as he spoke, a nervous habit that Sarah had learned to recognize over their 3 months together. Dr. Chen, the preliminary scans of structure Omega-7 have been completed. The crystalline formations appear to be artificial. Dating back approximately 50,000 standard cycles, your expertise in ancient engineering systems will be invaluable. Sarah nodded, checking her equipment pack one final time. Her specialty in xenoarchaeological engineering had brought her to the attention of the Council, particularly her work on the Martian ruins and the mysterious European artifacts. Those discoveries had established humanity as surprisingly adept at understanding ancient technologies that even the oldest galactic civilizations found baffling. The shuttle descent to the planet's surface took 40 minutes, during which Sarah reviewed the initial survey reports. Structure Omega-7 was a massive underground complex, discovered when geological surveys detected anomalous energy readings beneath what appeared to be a natural crystal formation. The entrance had been found only 3 days ago, sealed by mechanisms that had resisted all attempts at forced entry. The sealing technology appears to be beyond current understanding, reported Dr. Vax, the team's Zephyrian technology specialist. His insectoid features remained impassive, but Sarah detected excitement in the subtle vibrations of his antennae. Even our most advanced plasma cutters cannot penetrate the barrier. It appears to be composed of a metamaterial that actively adapts to counteract any force applied against it. As they landed on the planet's surface, Sarah was struck by the alien beauty of the landscape. Towering crystal spires stretched toward the lavender sky, while bioluminescent vegetation created patterns of light that shifted with the planet's electromagnetic field. The air was breathable for most species, though enriched with xenon compounds that gave it a faintly metallic taste. The entrance to structure Omega-7 lay at the base of a natural crystal formation that rose nearly a kilometer into the sky. The opening itself was sealed by what appeared to be a solid wall of the same adaptive material that Dr. Vax had described. The surface rippled like liquid mercury whenever touched, but remained completely impermeable. "Fascinating," Sarah murmured, running her gloved hand across the barrier. "The molecular structure seems to respond to pressure by creating opposing force vectors. It's almost like it's alive." The team set up their temporary research camp around the sealed entrance, deploying sensor arrays and analysis equipment. For 2 days, they attempted every conceivable method of entry. High-frequency sonic pulses, electromagnetic disruption, even carefully controlled antimatter charges yielded no results. The barrier simply absorbed or deflected every attempt. On the 3rd day, Sarah decided to approach the problem from a different angle. Instead of trying to force entry, she began analyzing the barrier's response patterns. Each attempt at penetration caused the material to shift and adapt, but she noticed that the changes followed specific mathematical sequences. "It's not random," she announced to the team during their evening briefing. "The barrier's adaptations follow a pattern. Look at these readings." She projected holographic displays of the sensor data, highlighting the mathematical relationships she had discovered. Each response is approximately 1.618 times more complex than the previous one. That's the golden ratio. This isn't just a defense mechanism, it's a test. Zektar's 4 arms moved in intricate patterns of skepticism. A test? For what purpose? And administered by whom? This structure predates any known civilization in this sector. Maybe that's exactly the point, Sarah replied, her excitement growing. What if this isn't meant to keep everyone out, but to select for specific traits or capabilities? The golden ratio appears in human architecture, art, and mathematics throughout our history. We're naturally attuned to recognize these patterns. Dr. Vax's antennae twitched with interest. You believe the barrier is designed to respond to human cognition specifically? Not specifically human, Sarah clarified, but perhaps to the type of pattern recognition and mathematical intuition that humans have developed. We approach problems differently than most galactic species. Where others see chaos or overwhelming complexity, we look for underlying patterns. The next morning, Sarah decided to test her hypothesis. Instead of bringing technological solutions to bear against the barrier, she approached it with nothing but her basic environmental suit and a simple electronic stylus. Standing before the rippling surface, she began to trace mathematical patterns in the air, using her stylus to create electromagnetic signatures that the barrier could detect. She started with simple sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci ratios, fractal geometries. The barrier's surface began to shift, not in the aggressive, defensive manner they had observed before, but in something that almost resembled curiosity. The ripples became more organized, creating interference patterns that matched Sarah's mathematical inputs. Encouraged, she began incorporating more complex relationships, the mathematics of crystal growth, the geometric principles underlying planetary formation, the wave equations that governed stellar fusion. With each new pattern, the barrier's response became more sophisticated, as if it were learning from her inputs. The breakthrough came when Sarah realized she was approaching the problem backwards. Instead of trying to impose human mathematical concepts on an alien system, she needed to listen to what the system was trying to tell her. She began observing the barrier's natural fluctuations and attempting to harmonize her inputs with its existing patterns. The process reminded her of learning to play a musical instrument with an alien partner. Each party contributed their natural abilities, but true harmony required understanding and adaptation from both sides. As she worked, Sarah began to feel that she was engaged in a conversation rather than solving a puzzle. After several hours of this mathematical dialogue, the barrier's behavior changed dramatically. Instead of the constant rippling motion that had characterized its surface, it began to form geometric shapes, hexagons, spirals, and complex three-dimensional patterns that hurt to look at directly. The temperature of the area around the barrier dropped noticeably, and the electromagnetic readings spiked beyond their instrument's ability to measure. "Dr. Chen," Zektar called urgently, "perhaps you should step back. The energy readings are becoming dangerous." But Sarah was transfixed by what she was seeing. The patterns in the barrier had begun to move in sequences that corresponded to her own mathematical inputs, but evolved into something far more sophisticated. It was as if the barrier was showing her the complete solutions to the partial equations she had been providing. Without thinking, she reached out to touch one of the geometric patterns with her bare hand, having removed her glove to better feel the electromagnetic fluctuations. The moment her skin made contact with the barrier, her body reacted to the planet's unfamiliar atmosphere. The xenon compounds that gave the air its metallic taste triggered an involuntary response, and she sneezed. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The sneeze, amplified by the environmental suit's communication system, created a specific acoustic signature that combined with the electromagnetic resonance Sarah had established with the barrier. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, everything stopped. Then, from somewhere deep within the crystal formation, came a sound that none of them had expected. It was a voice, speaking in what sounded like a language that predated known galactic civilization, but somehow conveying meaning that each team member understood in their own way. "The Successor has come back!" The voice echoed through the crystal formations around them, growing stronger with each repetition. The barrier that had resisted all their attempts at entry began to dissolve, not violently or suddenly, but with the gradual grace of morning mist dissipating in sunlight. As it faded, it revealed a corridor that stretched into the depths of the planet, lined with crystal formations that pulsed with internal light. The team stood in stunned silence, their instruments registering energy patterns unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The corridor beyond the dissolved barrier seemed to extend infinitely into the planet's depths, and from its depths came a warm breeze carrying scents of ozone and something that reminded Sarah of her grandmother's garden on Earth. "What did you do?" whispered Dr. Vax, his usually steady voice trembling with awe. Sarah stared at her hand, still tingling from contact with the barrier, then at the open corridor that beckoned them forward. "I think," she said slowly, "I just announced that humanity has arrived." As if responding to her words, the voice echoed again from the depths of the structure, closer this time and filled with what could only be described as joy. "The Successor has come back. The waiting is ended." The crystal formations around them began to pulse with increasing intensity, and the team realized that their discovery was about to change everything. They thought they knew about the galaxy, about ancient civilizations, and about humanity's place in the cosmic order. Sarah took the first step toward the corridor, her heart racing with the knowledge that they were about to uncover secrets that had been waiting 50,000 years for the right person to find them. Behind her, the rest of the team followed, their instruments recording everything as they ventured into the unknown depths of Structure Omega-7, guided by the ancient voice that continued to welcome the Successor home. The corridor stretched before them for what felt like kilometers, its crystalline walls pulsing with patterns of light that seemed to respond to their presence. Sarah led the way, her engineering background helping her recognize that the passage was not naturally formed but carefully constructed with mathematical precision that made her mind reel. The walls curved according to logarithmic spirals, and the lighting followed wave equations that created an oddly soothing rhythm. "The acoustic properties are remarkable," reported Dr. Vax, his instruments detecting sound patterns that seemed impossible. "The corridor appears to be designed as a resonance chamber. Every footstep, every breath, every word we speak is being amplified and analyzed by the structure itself." Zektar's 4 arms moved in patterns of extreme caution. "Perhaps we should establish a communication link with the surface expedition. This level of technological sophistication suggests capabilities far beyond our current understanding." "No," Sarah said firmly, surprising herself with her certainty. "The voice said the Successor has returned. It's been waiting. I don't think it would harm us after waiting 50,000 years for contact." As they proceeded deeper into the structure, the architecture around them began to change. The simple corridor opened into vast chambers filled with crystalline formations that defied conventional physics. Some crystals floated in midair without any visible support, rotating slowly while generating fields of energy that their instruments could detect but not classify. Others grew in impossible directions, their lattice structures extending through what appeared to be folded space. In the center of the first major chamber, they discovered what could only be described as a control interface, though it resembled no technology any of them had encountered. It consisted of a sphere of pure energy suspended above a platform that seemed to be grown from the same adaptive material as the barrier they had passed through. Approaches to the platform caused it to shift and flow, creating hand-shaped depressions that appeared sized for human anatomy. "Incredible," Sarah breathed, studying the energy patterns emanating from the sphere. "The field dynamics suggest this is some kind of information storage and processing system, but it operates on principles that shouldn't be possible according to current physics." The ancient voice spoke again, emanating from the sphere itself this time, and Sarah felt a strange sensation as if the words were appearing directly in her mind rather than entering through her ears. Approach, Successor. The knowledge waits for your understanding. Against the protests of her teammates, Sarah stepped onto the platform. The moment her feet touched its surface, the material began to flow around them, not constraining her movement, but creating a perfect interface between her environmental suit and the alien technology. The hand-shaped depressions aligned precisely with her reach, and when she placed her palms against them, the sphere above began to pulse with increasing intensity. Suddenly, Sarah's mind was flooded with images, concepts, and mathematical relationships that existed at the very edge of her comprehension. She saw the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago, populated by civilizations that had achieved technological and philosophical heights that made current galactic society seem primitive by comparison. She witnessed great ships that traveled not through space but through folded dimensions, cities that existed simultaneously on multiple worlds, and minds that could comprehend the mathematical foundations of reality itself. But she also saw the decline. The great civilizations had reached a point where their own advancement had become their limitation. Their minds, evolved beyond physical constraints, began to lose touch with the fundamental patterns that connected consciousness to the universe. They became trapped in abstractions of their own creation, unable to perceive the simple truths that formed the foundation of existence. They lost their intuition, Sarah whispered, understanding flooding through her. They became so advanced that they forgot how to think like biological beings. They could manipulate reality, but they could no longer feel it. The images continued, showing the last days of the great civilization. Recognizing their limitation, they had created the sealed structures, each one designed to preserve their knowledge until beings evolved who could bridge the gap between advanced technology and intuitive understanding. They had searched the galaxy for species that showed promise, analyzing the mathematical and cognitive patterns that would be necessary to inherit their legacy. Humanity had been identified as the most promising candidate. We think differently, Sarah realized, her voice filled with wonder. We use intuition and logic together. We can see patterns in chaos, find meaning in complexity, and most importantly, we never fully abandon our biological perspective, no matter how advanced our technology becomes. The sphere pulsed, and more knowledge flowed into her consciousness. She learned about the network of sealed structures scattered across the galaxy, each containing different aspects of the ancient civilization's accumulated wisdom. Some held technological blueprints for devices that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Others contained philosophical frameworks for understanding consciousness and its relationship to the physical universe. Still others held artistic and cultural treasures that represented the highest achievements of aesthetic expression. But the most important revelation was the discovery of humanity's true purpose in the galaxy. The ancient civilization had not simply stored their knowledge for any worthy successor. They had specifically engineered circumstances to guide human development toward this moment. The mysterious artifacts found throughout human space, the inexplicable technological leaps that had allowed humanity to join galactic civilization, even the patterns of human expansion across the stars had been subtly influenced by dormant systems left by the ancients. "You've been preparing us," Sarah said, addressing the intelligence within the sphere. "Everything humanity has achieved, every discovery we've made, has been leading to this moment." "Preparation was necessary," the voice replied, and Sarah could sense vast satisfaction in its tone. The successor species required development along specific parameters: technological capability without loss of intuitive understanding, logical reasoning without abandonment of emotional connection. The balance achieved by humanity is unprecedented in galactic history. Dr. Vax approached cautiously, his instruments recording everything but his understanding clearly struggling with the implications. "Dr. Chen, The energy readings suggest that this communication is fundamentally altering your neural patterns. Are you certain it's safe? Sarah laughed, surprising everyone, including herself. Safe? I don't think safety is relevant anymore. This is about the evolution of consciousness itself. The ancients didn't just leave us technology. They left us a path to become something greater than what we were. The sphere pulsed again, and Sarah felt her perception expanding beyond the confines of the chamber. She could sense the other sealed structures across the galaxy, each one waiting for human contact to unlock its secrets. She could perceive the vast network of dormant systems that the ancients had embedded throughout galactic civilization, ready to activate when humanity was prepared to claim its inheritance. But she also sensed something else: resistance. The current galactic powers, the species that had dominated interstellar politics for millennia, would not welcome the revelation that they had been surpassed by a relative newcomer. The knowledge contained in the ancient structures would fundamentally shift the balance of power in the galaxy, and those who currently held authority would not surrender it willingly. There will be conflict, Sarah realized, and the ancient intelligence confirmed her understanding. The successor species must be prepared for challenges. Knowledge alone is insufficient. Wisdom and courage will be required to claim the inheritance and protect it from those who would misuse it. As if to emphasize the point, Sarah's environmental suit began receiving urgent communications from the surface. Zektar activated his comm system, and they heard the voice of Captain Morvek, the Galactic Archaeological Council's military liaison. Unknown vessels approaching the planet, multiple signatures, heavily armed. They're demanding immediate surrender of all archaeological materials and personnel. Dr. Zektar, you need to evacuate the site immediately. Sarah felt a surge of protective anger that surprised her with its intensity. The knowledge she had touched was too important, too valuable, to fall into the hands of those who would use it for conquest or personal gain. Without fully understanding what she was doing, she reached deeper into the interface, seeking the defensive capabilities that she somehow knew the ancients had built into their structures. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The entire crystal formation began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that could be felt in their bones. Outside, the attacking vessels found themselves facing something unprecedented in galactic history. The planet itself had become a weapon. Energy fields that operated on principles beyond current understanding reached out into space, not to destroy the approaching ships, but to neutralize their weapons and disable their engines. One by one, the vessels found themselves powerless, drifting in space while their crews tried desperately to understand what had happened to their technology. "How?" gasped Zektar, his forearms moving in complex patterns of disbelief. "The ancients built defenses into every structure," Sarah explained, her consciousness still partially merged with the ancient systems. They knew that their knowledge would be coveted by those who shouldn't possess it. The structures can protect themselves, but only when activated by a successor species. The sphere pulsed one final time, and Sarah felt the connection beginning to fade as her human limitations reasserted themselves. But the knowledge she had gained remained, along with a deep understanding of the responsibility that now rested on humanity's shoulders. "This is only the beginning," she said, stepping back from the interface. "There are dozens of other structures across the galaxy, each containing knowledge that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. But claiming that knowledge will require more than just solving puzzles. It will require proving that humanity deserves to inherit the mantle of the galaxy's greatest civilization." As they made their way back toward the surface, the ancient voice spoke one last time, its tone now clearly one of benediction and hope. "The successor has been acknowledged. The inheritance awaits. Go forth and prove worthy of the trust placed in your species." Behind them, the structure continued to pulse with awakened power, and above them, the disabled attack fleet drifted helplessly in space, a clear message to the galaxy that humanity was no longer the junior species that others had assumed them to be. The return journey to the surface took on an entirely different character than their descent into the structure. Where before they had been explorers venturing into the unknown, they now walked as inheritors of knowledge that could reshape galactic civilization. The crystalline walls around them continued to pulse with awakened energy, and Sarah could feel the vast intelligence of the ancient systems maintaining a gentle connection with her consciousness. When they emerged from the structure, they found the archaeological camp in chaos. The disabled attack fleet hung in space above them like metal monuments to failed ambition, while emergency communications flooded in from across the galaxy. News of the mysterious planet that had effortlessly neutralized a military task force was spreading rapidly through diplomatic and military channels. Captain Morvek, a grizzled Carathian veteran with decades of peacekeeping experience, approached their group with an expression that mixed relief with deep concern. "Dr. Chen, what exactly happened down there? Our sensors detected energy discharges that shouldn't be possible. And the attack fleet's technology has been completely scrambled. Their computers can't even maintain life support without constant manual intervention." Sarah looked up at the drifting ships, feeling no satisfaction in their defeat, but rather a profound sense of the gravity of what humanity had inherited. "Captain, we've discovered something that changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy. The structure below isn't just an archaeological site. It's a test and a gift, left by a civilization that vanished 50,000 years ago." Over the next several hours, Sarah attempted to explain to the gathered officials and researchers what she had experienced within the ancient structure. The knowledge she had gained was too vast and complex to fully convey through normal communication. But the implications were clear enough to cause significant alarm among the non-human members of the expedition. "You're suggesting that humans are destined to inherit some kind of galactic supremacy?" asked Director Yithar of the Zephyrian Archaeological Institute, her compound eyes reflecting both skepticism and fear. Such claims have been made by countless species throughout history, usually as justification for conquest and expansion. "Not supremacy," Sarah corrected firmly. "Responsibility. The ancients didn't choose humanity because we're superior to other species. They chose us because we've maintained a balance between technological advancement and intuitive understanding that they lost in their own evolution. We think differently. And that difference is what's needed to properly use the knowledge they've preserved." The debate might have continued indefinitely, but it was interrupted by the arrival of additional ships in the system. Unlike the disabled military vessels, these new arrivals approached with caution and respect, broadcasting diplomatic credentials rather than demands for surrender. Representatives from the major galactic powers had come to investigate the situation personally. Ambassador Quelix of the Centauran hegemony was the first to land, accompanied by scientific advisors and a minimal security detail. The hegemony had dominated interstellar politics for over 3 millennia, and their reaction to humanity's new status would likely influence the response of other major powers. "Dr. Chen," Ambassador Quelix said formally, his translator struggling slightly with the complex harmonics of his native language. "The hegemony has received disturbing reports about the events on this world. We understand that human activity has resulted in the activation of previously dormant alien technology with significant military applications." Sarah had been expecting this conversation, but she still felt the weight of speaking not just for herself, but for all of humanity. "Ambassador, the technology isn't military in nature, despite its defensive capabilities. It's educational, cultural, and philosophical. The ancients left behind the accumulated wisdom of the galaxy's greatest civilization, and they specifically intended for humanity to inherit it." "Convenient," interjected General Thokvar, the hegemony's military advisor, his 3 heads speaking in unsettling unison. And what proof do you offer that these claims are legitimate, rather than the delusions of a primitive species overwhelmed by contact with advanced technology? Before Sarah could respond, the ancient structure itself provided the answer. The crystal formation began to emit a low, harmonic tone that seemed to resonate through the very atoms of everyone present. The sound carried within it mathematical patterns that conveyed meaning directly to the consciousness of all who heard it, regardless of species or native language. The message was simple but profound, a complete mathematical proof demonstrating the unified field theory that had eluded galactic science for centuries, not just the equations, but the intuitive understanding necessary to apply them safely and effectively. Every scientist present immediately recognized the implications of what they were receiving. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Vax, his antennae trembling with excitement and fear. "These equations, they explain quantum consciousness, the relationship between thought and reality, the mathematical foundation of life itself. This knowledge could advance our understanding by millennia." Ambassador Quelix stepped back, his usually composed demeanor showing cracks of uncertainty. "Even if this knowledge is legitimate, what gives humanity the right to claim exclusive access to it? Such discoveries belong to all galactic civilization." "The ancients disagree," Sarah replied, feeling the vast intelligence within the structure supporting her words. They spent 50,000 years evaluating the species of the galaxy, looking for those who could inherit their legacy without repeating their mistakes. Humanity was their choice, not because of any inherent superiority, but because of how we think, how we balance logic with intuition, how we maintain our connection to fundamental patterns even as we advance technologically. The demonstration that followed made further argument impossible. The structure began projecting holographic displays that showed the location and nature of other ancient sites across the galaxy. Dozens of them, each containing specialized knowledge in different fields: technology, biology, physics, art, philosophy, and sciences that didn't even have names in current galactic languages. But more than just the locations were revealed. The displays showed that the sites would only activate for humans, requiring not just human presence but the specific type of pattern recognition and intuitive problem-solving that had allowed Sarah to communicate with the barrier. Other species could observe and learn from what humans discovered, but they could not access the knowledge directly. "The ancients designed it this way deliberately," Sarah explained as she watched the faces of the gathered representatives process this information. "They didn't want their knowledge to become just another tool for conquest or domination. They wanted it to be claimed by a species that would use it to benefit all galactic civilization, not just themselves." General Thokvar's three heads conferred briefly before speaking in unison. "And what guarantee do we have that humans will honor such idealistic intentions? Power corrupts, regardless of species. What happens when humanity possesses technology that makes the rest of us obsolete?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Sarah felt the weight of 50,000 years of ancient planning resting on her answer. She thought about humanity's history, their struggles and triumphs, their capacity for both great cruelty and profound compassion. When she spoke, it was with the certainty of someone who had touched the wisdom of ages. "Because that's exactly why the ancients chose us. We've had the capacity for destruction since we discovered fire, yet we're still here. We've developed weapons that could destroy our entire world, yet we chose not to use them. We've faced countless opportunities to dominate or exploit others, yet we keep choosing cooperation over conquest. It's not that we're perfect, but that we're aware of our imperfections and actively work to overcome them." The ancient structure pulsed with approval, and Sarah felt the vast intelligence within it adding its voice to hers. "The successor species has been tested throughout their development. They have demonstrated the wisdom to use power responsibly and the humility to acknowledge their limitations. This is why they were chosen. Ambassador Quelix exchanged glances with his advisors before speaking carefully. Assuming we accept these claims, what are humanity's intentions regarding this inheritance? How will you proceed with claiming these other sites? Sarah looked up at the disabled attack fleet, then at the gathered representatives of galactic civilization. We proceed carefully, openly, and with the understanding that this knowledge belongs to all of us. Even if only humans can unlock it, every discovery will be shared, every advancement will be made available to all species that can use it responsibly. The ancients didn't preserve their wisdom for one species alone. They preserved it for the entire galaxy. And if other species or governments attempt to claim these sites by force, pressed General Thokvar, then the structures will defend themselves as this one did, Sarah replied simply. The ancients built their safeguards well. The knowledge they preserved can only be claimed through understanding, not conquest. Any attempt to take it by force will result in the same fate as the attack fleet above us. As if to emphasize the point, one of the disabled ships attempted to restart its engines, only to have its power systems immediately shut down again by invisible forces emanating from the planet's surface. The message was clear. The ancient technology would not tolerate aggressive behavior. Over the following days, as news of the discovery spread throughout the galaxy, humanity found itself suddenly thrust into a position of unprecedented importance. The other ancient sites began activating in response to human presence throughout galactic space, each one requiring teams of human researchers to unlock its secrets. But perhaps more importantly, the revelation forced all galactic species to reevaluate their understanding of intelligence, consciousness, and the relationship between technological advancement and wisdom. The ancients' choice of humanity as their inheritors wasn't based on superiority in any traditional sense, but on a different way of thinking that balanced multiple perspectives simultaneously. Sarah stood at the observation deck of the research station, watching as the first joint human-alien research teams prepared to investigate other ancient sites. The knowledge they would discover would transform galactic civilization, but the true transformation had already begun. The galaxy was learning to think like humans, with intuition and logic, emotion and reason, ambition and humility working together in harmony. The ancient voice spoke one final time, its message carrying to every conscious being within the system. The inheritance is claimed. The successor has proven worthy. Let the next phase of galactic evolution begin. And in the depths of space, 50,000 years after their creators had vanished into transcendence, the ancient structures awakened fully for the first time, ready to guide their chosen successors toward a future that would surpass even their builders' greatest achievements.